thank you so much for coming. My name is Jason Tomanek. I'm
I didn't
a member
turn
here
your hand
at
on my
Shepherd.
side.
I'm also the
Want me to do that?
chairperson for the
labeled
long-range
Jason's
planning.
here.
That's really what we're doing here today is we're looking at the future of Good Shepherd. We're looking at the future of our community. Good Shepherd has the good fortune of growing. Our church is seeing a significant increase in members that worship here. On any given week, we're generally somewhere between 800 to 1,000 people that are worshiping through 6 services during the week. An extremely robust youth program going on here, and we are looking at what more we can do in the community. Through the long-range planning efforts, we're looking at what does this campus look like in the future. We're talking about, do we get bigger? Do we keep what we've got, kind of stay the same? Or do we think boldly and increase our footprint as a campus, offer more throughout the community? So what we're really here to do today is to listen to all of you. You all received the letter that we wrote, and really we've got some significant questions that we'd like you to answer. Primarily, what are the gaps in the community? What are ways that Good Shepherd as a church, as a congregation, can help support this community, the community of Bismarck and Mandan? How can we grow as we look into the near future? So with these questions in mind, we reached out to a consulting service from the Twin Cities, Kairos and Associates. Tim Johnson is going to facilitate this conversation today. Obviously, we've got quite a few of you here, and we want to be mindful of everybody's schedules. We appreciate that you all have jobs and other things that are taking your time, but we also want to make sure everybody has a chance to share your thoughts and ideas so nobody leaves without the chance to speak. So with that in mind, just be respectful of everybody's time. Tim is going to watch the clock, and I'll do my part. If we get out the shepherd's hook, it's not because we didn't want to hear what you wanted to say, it's just because we want everyone else to get a chance to speak. So with that, I'm going to turn this microphone off and let Tim take over. Obviously, we've got some folks from our congregation here as well. We've got some church council members. We've got some other members on the planning team. So if you see some familiar faces, wave to them and say hi. They're gracious that you're here as well. And again, thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to what we can learn from you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I sure want to join him and on behalf of the congregation in saying thank you for coming and spending your lunch hour with us and sharing some about what it is that you do on behalf of the larger Bismarck Mandan community and helping us to think a little bit more deeply about our role and our place as a faith community. And one of the things that we see in church consulting in the relationship between churches, faith communities, and the broader community is that there's a real ongoing blurring of the lines between church and community. For good, I would say, is where we have for years and years had a little bit more distinctness or separation. We're seeing a far greater openness to explore those questions of where do we have common ground? Where can we find ways that we can do some things hand in hand? And certainly, most churches now, they've got some ways in which they're partnering with some things, and you probably, I'm sure for each of you, you've got some partner organizations and partner individuals who help you to be about the mission and the purpose of your organization. So we're kind of in that mode of, again, listening and exploring a little bit. So this is, for our guide, are these questions, right, that you received, and we'll kind of walk through them. So it is mostly our listening to you, but it's also, we want to also recognize and say that at our best, this is a little bit conversational too. So as members, I want you to be thinking too and jotting notes about things that you hear. And at any time we can have some engagement, seeking some clarification, those kinds of things. They generally kind of come down through the second half of what we're doing, but I want all of us to know that at our best, right, we're all in this together, and we all learn and grow from one another, and there can be some things that are of particular interest or passion that is going to rise where we need to be there. So I don't want this to be a stiff, you go down the and then like we're not going to talk outside of that. So know that there's some openness and some freedom in doing that. On a couple of these, we'll kind of go down the road, and then if we might do that on one or a couple, but then there's some point at which we'll kind of see who's got something that they would like to share a little bit more deeply, right? So my first question for you is simply this, is if you'd share your name and the organization that you represent. And if you could, in a phrase or in a nutshell, if you could just say, what's at the heart of your place or of what it is that you do? So we'll get to some points where we'll be more descriptive about the full breadth of things, but if you could, kind of in a nutshell, how do you name what's at the heart of your work or of the organization that you represent? We do have, thank you, we've got microphones. I think we've got 4 of them, and so those are probably, I think they're all turned on, and if you use those will be good. You can share them if you're sharers among yourselves, and we can all hear. So, is it Gina or Jenna? Jenna, okay, Jenna, thank you.
Is this on?
Yep, there you go.
Wonderful. Good morning.
Good morning, yes.
My name is Jenna Dullo. I work at the United Way here in Bismarck, and the heart of our organization is filling gaps and solving problems in the community. Most times we do that by bringing people around the table, whether it's private or public partners in the community. So sometimes it's raising money, sometimes it's recruiting volunteers, and other times it's actually doing the service ourselves, just to make sure we have things in the community like a homeless shelter or the backpack program so kids aren't going hungry.
Great, nice, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Erickson. I'm with the Abused Adult Resource Center. I guess our main goal is to just help people live a life without violence, whether we do that by crisis intervention, safety planning, shelter, whatever resources we can try to help them with so that they can get out and live in a life where they don't have to worry about violence happening in their home.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Carrie with Carrie's Kids, and it's always an honor to be with all of the people up here on this panel. I know they're very busy and we do our best to partner together. What Carrie's Kids is we serve children and teens who are homeless or at risk. We're a VIP clubhouse.
I'm Dick Dever. I'm the state senator from District 32, which is most of South Bismarck, and that includes a precinct that includes Cathedral Church and Roosevelt School. In my service in the Senate, and you all know what government does, or doesn't. But my primary focus as a state senator for several years now has been in the area of human services, particularly in behavioral health, and we did more in this last session regarding behavioral health than we ever have. And one of the things that I appreciate being here, and I appreciate the interest of this congregation to involve themselves in some of those kinds of issues. And one thing that I would say is that while the government has a role, the government can't fix it. It's a people thing. So the opportunities that you're looking for, I think, exist in that area too.
Very good, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kurt Snyder. I'm the Executive Director of the Heartbeat Foundation. At the heart of our mission is to serve people with drug and alcohol issues and help them to reclaim their lives. So we currently have 3 buildings in Bismarck and serve close to 350 to 400 people at any given time. So, and only 13 residential treatment beds. So most of those people are living in the community and coming to us on an outpatient basis.
Thank you, Kurt.
Hi, my name is Erin Oban, a proud member of the Shepherd Lutheran Church. Nice to see all of you. I serve in the North Dakota Senate, District 35, which is central Bismarck, where we sit right now, includes DSC, the capital, stretches horizontally all the way through town, up north of Sleepy Hollow. Ultimately, I think my goal, I'm an educator by trade, so that's a lot of where my focus is as a legislator, but ultimately trying to be a voice for younger working families in the North Dakota legislature. There is a void of diversity of voice represented in the North Dakota legislature. And I think especially now as I'm understanding the both directly and indirectly the needs of kind of the sandwich generation who might be taking care of children and taking care of aging parents, the difficulties and challenges that presents for working people.
Good morning, I'm Shauna Mertz, principal at Northridge Elementary, just up the road here. And our purpose is success for all kids. So we're reaching out to them daily with developing academic, social, personal skills, striving for them to be successful today and for their future. So whether they're college career or community bound.
Thank you.
Yeah, the education row here. Dr. Ben Johnson, I'm the assistant superintendent for secondary schools here with Bismarck Public Schools as well. I'll take a little bit different route. We're in the middle of a strategic plan as well with our district, and tentatively right now the hook line for our kind of mission statement would be empowering every learner to thrive. Really keying in on empowering people, each and every, what it means to thrive, not just exist or get along. I do think that our whole point as schools are to really try to impact lives, individual lives. We get caught up in data and numbers, but there's faces behind that. Each son or daughter of someone else, my own kids included. We want to change the trajectory for some families, and education has been for my own family roots here in North Dakota. The means at which it sent farming families who were moving beyond to be able to go on to professional means and pave a better life for myself, and I think we want the same for everyone else. I think we end up getting to reflect or help join the conversation of defining what a community wants to be. And so we're obviously a reflection of what the microcosm elements like Aaron was talking about throughout our town and what we collectively want. So that's where I see our mission heading.
Thank you, Dr. Ben.
Hi, I am Sean Oban, and I think I'm here with a couple different hats. One, I'm a Bismarck City Commissioner, as well as the principal of Jeanette Myery, which is down on 12th and Expressway. And interesting from the city's perspective and the school district's perspective, the city is just finishing up and starting to figure out best ways to share their strategic plan. And so the opportunities that we have out there, and then the Bismarck Public Schools is in the midst of their strategic plan. So kind of how the connections there work. But it's interesting when you talk about government and the city of Bismarck. Really, when we wrote our strategic plan, it was really about people. What are the needs that we have in our community? What are the needs that we see for families, for young people? And every single day at Jeanette Myery, I see the needs that we have in our families and our kids that come to school. So really, it's just a matter of lifting people up and making the community, like Dr. Johnson said, the community that we want to be a part of.
Thank you. Yep.
I think the educators ended right here. Although I'm married to an educator. Anyway, I'm Bill Bauman from the YMCA, Executive Director over there. So we're all about being good neighbors, good shepherd, and good partners with the community. We have the community very much at heart, service of the community, and serving our families and strengthening families. And kind of at the core of that would be healthy living, youth development, and social responsibility. Those are kind of our three big pillars. Our mission is actually to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. So we're all about serving the community, growing with the community, serving all members of the community, not just the families, but all ages, and those whether they can afford to participate or not afford to. That's a big part of what we do. Thanks.
Thank you.
I am Ryder Thompson. I'm married to an educator. Right there. I'm with Missouri Slope Lutheran Care Center here in Bismarck, organization a lot of you know about, being that Good Shepherd is one of the corporate members of Missouri Slope. Missouri Slope was given birth by this church and several other churches in the ELCA, churches of Bismarck, Mandan, and now Wilton. And of course, our mission is to enrich lives with love and compassion, and it's providing Christ-centered care to those that live and work at Missouri Slope and Valley View Heights. And we're in the midst of executing our strategic plan that was actually written in 2014, and it just takes a long time to get some of these things done. Again, a lot of you know about our big project on North Washington Street, so that's something that was born out of that strategic plan as well.
Very good, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Todd Steinlein. I'm a longtime member of Good Shepherd. I'm here with probably two hats on too. I work with the Bank of North Dakota. Our mission at the Bank of North Dakota is to promote commerce, industry, and agriculture for the state. Overall, to get the heart of it is what can we do to make North Dakota better? And then I'm also on the board of directors of the Tom and Frances Leach Foundation, which is a private foundation headquartered out of here in Bismarck. And what that foundation does is really provide funding for many of the nonprofits, that a lot of familiar faces I see up here. So we provide funding for a lot of the nonprofits across mostly western North Dakota.
Thanks.
And I think lastly, Renee Mock, the Director for Bismarck-Burley Public Health, and our mission is to improve the health and safety of our community. We're involved in a variety of different projects. We've worked with the local hospitals in completing a community health needs assessment, and so we've kind of found some needs and things that we're addressing in our community through that. Also been involved with the plan to prevent and end homelessness for our area. And then lastly, also a project team member for the City of Bismarck Strategic Plan.
Very good. Thank you so much. Yeah, grateful for all of how you serve in all of these different ways. I'm mindful of a couple things as I have kind of gotten to know the Bismarck area a little bit better as I've been in and out of town and working with our leadership team here. One of the things that impresses me is that kind of early on, as our leadership team especially shared a lot about the broader community, is that Bismarck clearly has a full breadth of organizations and individuals and passion and commitment for advancing the well-being of the broader community. That became pretty apparent. That's not true in all places. And the other thing is, another one would be how many opportunities there are for there to be some real interrelatedness, it seems, between a lot of organizations. I know that many of you know each other, you're shaking hands, you're nodding at each other as you came in. But finally, I'm impressed too that as I heard a number of you speak, that there has been a number of kind of long-range planning and strategic planning sorts of endeavors that have been or are going on now. And it strikes me that there's, perhaps there's some convergence, right, in a lot of insightful energies put into this question of, how can we advance the well-being of our community and of our individuals and our families in a more in a more concerted way, and that there can be some kind of synthesizing of that, perhaps. But that's a number of different organizations have gone through or are going through that. It strikes me as being a little bit unusual. The next thing I'd like to do as we would go through is, and you can talk, so not that you weren't already speaking a little bit about this, but as you think about your clientele and who it is that you're serving, your partnerships, if you could speak to what you see to be the most pressing needs. As you think about the full breadth of what you're doing, and clearly it's all need, right? What would you name to be the most pressing needs that you and your organization are wrestling with, that kind of those things that really kind of tug at your heart, right? Kind of keep you up late, have you engage in more conversations, those things. Or said differently, maybe a couple of you kind of spoke to that matter of there being gaps, right? But how would you describe what those needs are, and how would you describe a little bit about what how you try to engage in those? Okay. So we'll start here again. If you want to speak to that, or if you want to pass the microphone, you can do whatever, and we can circle back. But
okay, I was just writing down some quick notes. There's some very practical needs in the community, such as affordable housing, particularly for high-risk individuals. So people coming out of prison with a felony, sex offenders, people that have bad credit. It's very difficult to find quality housing for them. Drop-in daycare sponsorships. We have so many people and many of the populations that we serve that want to better themselves. They're typically, they're typically single parents, so they can't be out on the job hunt or get a job. They can't afford the daycare. And so drop-in particularly, or child care sponsorships in general, are big needs. Case management. A lot of churches give out rental assistance, right? You might give a hotel voucher. You have someone call you late at night, oh, the shelter's full, which is not true. And they ask for your money, and it's very kind that you do this. But rental assistance without quality case management oftentimes just perpetuates the problem. If you're not going to be able to target why those people are being evicted or homeless in the first place, right, the cycle's going to continue. Something very easy, Bible studies for people in lots of shelters or in programming or at our United Way homeless shelter. People don't, I guess when they walk in our door, we run the only homeless shelter in town, right? So people walk in the door and they're broken. They don't really know where to turn. They don't have a good support system. So what could we be doing, thinking out of the box, to help wrap our arms around folks? Yeah, we can refer people to different services and try to connect the dots for help, but is that really what we all need, just a service? We really need people, and people to empower us and to feel value, and then ultimately faith, right? One of the areas that United Way targets is early childhood development. That's where we feel that we have the biggest bang for our buck. That's where we can invest in quality programs that are evidence-based, that can break that cycle of poverty for people. And another area is asset development. There's 40 assets that if your child, this is for any income level, if your child has those 40 assets, they're less likely to become involved in risky behaviors. And it can be things such as positive adult role models in our community. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was about only 40% of kids felt that they had an adult positive role model in their life.
Right.
We're all here, so how can we get more involved in their lives? And I want to say 20% of our youth, again, all income levels, feel that or have 10 or less assets, which means they're 8 times more likely to get involved in risky behaviors, drinking, drugs, violence, bringing a gun to school, etc. Thank you.
I know that earlier on when the Search Institute came out with that, churches were initially very, very engaged in sharing and illuminating and advancing the cause of those 40 assets. Not that that doesn't still happen, but not in a way that there's need, right? And looking at some of those can help to say, I can fill the gap with a couple of those. Yep.
It's a proactive approach.
Right, yeah, good reminder. Thank you.
I'm gonna ditto what she said for the most part. Definitely housing and childcare are two things that the population we work with needs help with. And then just for those of you that might not know, our population is generally domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking victims. So we're a little more limited on who we can take in. Our emergency shelter has 38 beds, and people are staying probably 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer. Then our transitional shelter has 25 beds, and people can stay there up to 2 years. We actually have somebody in there that's been there over 3 years because she's actually working on immigration, and we don't have a lot of resources for that either. So that's definitely another area that we've come up against that's expensive, and there's no one here to really help with immigration. We work with Fargo a lot. So those are kind of, and then legal assistance. Legal Services of North Dakota does what they can, but they run out of money too. And so we've always had a need for assistance with legal situations as well.
It's always amazing to be on this panel and hear all the various needs. We deal with children, so we don't take on the adult-based issues. We don't handle the rent and stuff like that. Some of our greatest needs are transportation. A lot of kids can ride the bus to school, but then if they stay late to be involved in anything like basketball or play, some of them just don't have a ride back home. And it seems as we always have these open discussions, we talk about income levels. And we have a lot of people who are in the middle and higher class that have different issues than those in our lower class levels. And where we struggle is a lot of the kids that are in the lower economic, and I appreciate the YMCA enough, thank you very much, for allowing kids to get scholarships to get in. But again, we have our hard time and just how do we get them to and from. And that's like a huge need. We have a lot of great things that happen in this community and a lot of incredible partners, but we still have this huge gap on transportation. And it costs a lot just to do a taxi cab or, Uber. Another thing I'm gonna touch base on is Facebook is amazing, it's a great gift and it's a tool. And we see a lot of people that are posting their needs on Facebook and then other people generously responding. And so I'm gonna tap into what Jenna said. Some of that is really super amazing, but at the same time, you're not getting that person connected. So for us in 2020, we're talking about connection, not connection to the need, but connection to relationships. And because people need to be surrounded by those who care. And we see it a lot through technology, people are getting disconnected. And so being face-to-face, why do I love this panel? Because I can see all of these beautiful people and we can communicate. And a lot of us could talk for days, so a lot of them you'll see them run from me because I'll snag them. Because it's like to be around such energy and such passion is imperative. And so I want you to think about that too. Even as you do this through your own exploration, I would sincerely beg that you do more group effort, more things where you bring people in so they can get connected. When we talk about the assets and we talk about role models, a lot of that, be cognizant even of your own self. When you see people together and they're all on their phones or they're just in separate rooms, some of the things that we see a lot is that people don't do family meals. So in our 2020, we're trying to do everything we can to be more group oriented, and we will be having a list of needs. And so it's like we're looking to be specifically target. We're opening up our Lego room. I'm tapping in and following along with what they started at Myrie Guitar Club. So we want to continue that even through the summer. So these kids will still have this face-to-face and skill improvement. We see a lot of skills depleting. There's a lot of great kids out there, but how do you open it up? We have our art club, so if you're an artist and you really feel the need to share, hook up with us. We'll make a night for you. What we want to do is see more face-to-face interaction.
Very good, thank you. No.
Boy, do I now feel wholly inadequate. I mentioned behavioral health, and I think the important thing first is to recognize how big the problem is. We're dealing with addiction issues in middle schools and mental health issues in elementary schools. People don't realize that. About a year and a half ago, I heard the Moorhead police chief on the radio, and he said, if all the behavioral health issues went away, I would be on the fire department because we'd only need 3 police officers in Moorhead. That's not an exaggeration. 65% of the inmates in the correction system in North Dakota and across the country have an addiction issue. I attended a drug addiction treatment seminar several years ago, and they said 90% of crimes are committed while the perpetrator is under the influence. Just think about that. That's just what addiction issues, behavioral health, and mental health issues do to our society. So everything we're talking about here has some association with that. And I mentioned that we did more in this last session than we ever have. And one of the things that we have recognized in just the last 4 or 5 years is how effective peer-to-peer supports are. It's all about interpersonal connections. We have programs in the Department of Human Services entitled Experienced Parent, Parents Lead, Parent to Parent, Family to Family, and Peer-to-Peer. And those are all important programs, but they all exist in an effort to create interpersonal connections that occurred much more naturally 40 and 50 years ago. So I think as a congregation, to foster those interpersonal connections, to recognize, how long has it been since you heard it said that the family is the cornerstone of society? We don't think that way anymore. We somehow think that the government can fix it. The government can't fix it. So I think something very important for you to recognize is just how important, not just Facebook, but the telephone, and just put your hand on somebody's shoulders. So also some of the things that we've done in the area of behavioral health is what's called the 1915 High, which is probably going to come into place this summer will allow for Medicaid services for behavioral health issues, both at the adult level and at the youth level, which will impact areas like Edmonton Place, which is a homeless shelter here in town. There were one other things that we did that I'm not going to think of right at the moment, but in our education system, we've got a middle school principal at Sydney Middle School who is changing the culture of the school in the area of behavioral health. And we are funding a pilot project at that school, at a tribal school, and at a rural school, which will be coming into play. Those are making huge differences. And when I visited with Russ Rio about Sydney Middle School, and they're changing the culture for everybody. I'm kind of excited about that. I've got a couple of grandkids there. But one of the things we're doing is providing services to the kids that really need it. And he was surprised. He said, when we started this program, I thought there would be 50 kids in the school that needed the program, needed intensive support. But he said, it's, as they've identified it, it's only 10. Those are things that we can do if we recognize the extent of the problem and what we can do about it. So I appreciate what you're doing. And I talked about peer-to-peer, but I need to, before I pass this to Kurt Snyder with Heartview, recognize that there are some situations where it goes beyond that need.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I want to recognize just really quickly what a few people said down below me or in front of me. Drop-in daycare is huge for moms who need services but can't go because they're, have kids at their hip, and also affordable housing. One thing that research or the statistics show us is that 1 out of 10 people in the United States struggle with substance use. So if you do the math on that, that's a lot of people in your own congregation. Probably of the people that struggle with substance use, 70% of them are employed. So if you think about substance abuse as drugs, it is. But in North Dakota, we usually lead the nation in binge drinking and rates of dependence. And so, one thing I would say that's hugely important is educating the community, the congregation, the people around us about what is drug addiction, substance abuse, mental health, because depending upon your working definition that people have is going to really push how you're going to react to it. And it is a health condition, and people need support. One other thing that I think is important to point out is that there's a study out of the American Academy of Pediatrics that if kids start using drugs or alcohol by the age of 14, 40% of them will go on to have lifelong careers in substance abuse. There's another study with alcohol that shows when they start at 15, 16, 17, the rates of them going on to have lifelong careers with alcoholism goes down every year they wait to start using. So I think that as a community we need to understand how powerful it can be if we can just keep our kids engaged in other things besides drugs and alcohol. It just continues to make places like us be needed later, and it'd be nice if we could go away. I think that's enough for me. I'll pass it on. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to kind of add and intersect there and say that, I think one of the things that we see in our faith communities that is an imperative or something that we can absolutely do, we need to pay attention to, is to be naming and talking about all of these things and take away some of the shame and the guilt, right, that goes with them. And part of that, too, is, as we all know, none of us need to look further than somewhere in our own family to know that we've got people, loved ones who are wrestling with this stuff. And so one of the problems, I think, is that we keep that under the radar. And as we can kind of bring that open and say, we're all in this together. We're all struggling with different things. But we need to be finding open and honest and helpful and constructive ways of engaging with this together, right? That can help us to again, that whole matter of being connected, not being in it alone, getting some resources and some help, and those kinds of things. So sometimes I think that's one of the outcomes for our church communities is to say, part of this is we just need to endeavor to be more bold, to be more open to that. One of the things I said last night in a different meeting is that the reality of being more intentional, engaging in some deep need issue and community kind of based stuff is that a lot of it is messy, right? People's lives are messy, and we've got to kind of get past that to say, you know, are we willing to step into the middle of stuff where the answers aren't so clear or so simple, and walk alongside people with encouragement and with some tools, and all of a sudden that's a game changer. Yeah. So good. Thank you for all those shares.
I would also ditto everything that's been said. The three things I wrote down first were affordable housing, quality childcare, which includes before and after school care, and early childhood, quality early childhood experiences that gets kids ready to go to school. To your point, in what is messier, that I see a need for families is more time and flexibility in employment to care for family and self. Paid family leave is a thing that exists, and I would love for it to exist here because I think it benefits everybody across generations. And I would also mention that need for childcare is not just for like parents who are struggling with some of these really serious issues, but also who are trying to get educated. I serve on the Adult Learning Center's advisory board, and the biggest issue for their students is having access to affordable childcare while trying to, you're not employed, you're trying to get the skills to become employable. And then one other really messy thing that I think is happening in this community and is concerning to a number of individuals that I work professionally and sort of politically with is the need for healing in our community among multiple cultural differences. So whether that is our American Indian population who lives and works here in Bismarck, Mandan, or our new American population, we've had a lot of really challenging issues and discussions and debates in Bismarck about both refugee resettlement, the very broad misunderstanding of immigration generally, and then also the first Americans, the American Indian population, who was really here first. And just really not understanding each other. And I think an expectation oftentimes of the predominant culture that the other cultures need to understand us, that goes both ways.
Well said, thank you.
I think from within my school community, I would say that that considering the needs, the basic needs of our learners and ensuring that they're receiving those basic needs on a daily basis is a really important task for us. We utilize a lot of the resources of these agencies as well to support us with that, or connecting our families to those agencies so they can receive that outside support. I think another component that is important within our school setting is going back to that relationship piece as well, ensuring that our students have those adults to go to, that same person to connect with, so that each student has an advocate for them, and whether, and maybe we'll get to this further on too, but on how we've been able to do that within our school is building some partnerships as well through different groups within our community. So we've really enjoyed that as well, because we know that teachers, first and foremost, their job is to teach, but then they've been faced with so many other roles to support their learners within the classroom and equip them with the needs that they have before them. And so learning how we can branch out and connect with other agencies or groups in order to ensure that our students are receiving those positive adult relationships and connections with kids is really kind of what we're looking at right now.
Very good, thank you.
So many different ways, I guess, that I could go with this, but realizing that schools are the one thing that represents the whole community, because literally our students are coming from every corner, touching every corner, every family. Obviously, there's parochial and some private schools there as well, but really a cross-section of the community is reflected. So whether that's academic or social, emotional, behavioral learning needs. We also talk a little bit about, it's 2020, but 21st century skills. Well, what do we mean? really those are all century skills. We've always needed critical thinkers. We've always needed people to be creative, to innovate, to collaborate, to get along, to communicate effectively. The difference is that we need most of the jobs that are high wage, livable wages are requiring that out of all people versus there used to be, such as my own family, you could go work on the farm and kind of be individual and do what you needed to do. Obviously within the family, that's a little bit different now with the jobs that are available now and kind of that retraining, retooling. It's been kind of alluded to, but our English learner population, though small, has grown significantly here, and with that presents great opportunities to not only look at the students, but look at their families. And we have the Adult Learning Center, Aaron referred to that a little bit too, and there's always opportunities to, if you speak English, you can help other people learn English just through conversation, and so there's volunteer opportunities there to be able to help out, because that's helping out the students then at home as well. But again, we're never going to fall short of any work. We've gotten some great flexibility from the legislatures to be able to allow on that innovation side, to allow for us to kind of rethink what school can be. But I do think that ultimately, when kids come, all the issues that you heard about in the community, they are, the most needy kids are coming, reflecting what is a need within their home. And within that, really, we only have about 6 to 8 hours in a day, and then they're returning back. So if we can be a partner, that's great, but we're obviously looking, I think the conversation today is how do we, or you as a community, help be part of that larger picture that extends beyond the school hours into the evening, weekends, and those family lives.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll kind of talk on the school and the city and even some overlap. Being part of both strategic plans, it was interesting to me that both the city and the school district, one of the core values identified in the strategic plan was welcoming diversity, kind of going to Aaron's point of talking about some healing and education that needs to take place in our community, and quite honestly, defining our community, because I think that there are some people that may be trying to redefine it. So you have strategic plans that say that we value and recognize and embrace these things, and then we have other folks that are maybe demonstrating the opposite. And how are we going to define truly what it is that we believe? At Myery, I mean, one of the needs that we have, and I'm not sure I know a solution, but we have young parents that are struggling with parenting. Identifying, what are the appropriate screen times, when to put kids to bed, how to, get kids to doctor's appointments and do some of those things that I think maybe some of us in this room felt like, that's kind of basic stuff, and then you kind of get to an area where it's not, and it's difficult to overcome some of those things. And we have a great program, Neighbors Network, which is partly funded by United Way, that has people go in and help parents kind of make those appointments, but that is a high need. And another need that we have at Myery is making some tighter connections with our community. Sometimes in parts of town you feel like we are one community, and then you get to an area of town, and Jeanette Myery, I think, is one of those areas that they may not feel as connected to the rest of the community. And even with our kids, there's a couple stories that will stick with me as long as I will be here, is, taking the kids on a field trip in the bus and driving down Expressway, and there's a Dairy Queen that's a couple blocks down. At least I assume everybody knows what Dairy Queens are, but and one of the second graders leaned over and said, "I've never been past the Dairy Queen before." Wow. And then another story where a first grader was telling the teacher, when I grow up and when I go to jail like my dad, then this is what and so changing what their outcome and what they see the possibilities are. And so we're trying to get people to come in to paint a different picture and to go out to the community and go into businesses and work with people so they can see a different picture of what the outcomes can be.
Well spoken, thank you.
So many great comments. so far, and I'll just reiterate a couple of them. But the why, we're very much about preventive organization of building strong, thriving, healthy youth. And it's also a place to really strengthen the family. And I see a lot of young people in this room here today, but we do believe very firmly in serving the older folks too, and the older generation, helping to keep them healthy and independent so that they can stay in their house. They don't, I'm not trying to take business away from Ryer, as they provide important service. We want them to stay healthy for as long as they can and have a thriving life. But we talked a little bit about childcare up until this point. We know how incredibly important that is, not only for the community, but for the workforce, for the employers, for everybody. We're the largest childcare provider in the city, in the state, and in the country. And early education is very important for us. I'll tell you, it's not an easy business to run. It's very complicated, but it's vital. That early education and development is vital. And high quality childcare is so important for our community and for members of our community. Some more obvious things such as youth obesity. Our kids are becoming less and less active. We need to find ways to get them more active. We need to have what we like to be at the Y, or Family Wellness, which is our other organization in Mandan, is being a real healthy place to gather and to be a very welcoming place where people can have like-minded opportunities and ways to strengthen and improve themselves. That's all very vital, and what we've seen so much too in the last 5-6 years is our community has gotten a lot more diverse. We're welcoming so many people, new people into our community, and the Y has been a good place to be able to serve and provide opportunity for them. And it's really fun to see such a different, vast background of individuals each and every day. With the child care, one more point on that. There's so many ways I think that we could all be working together and partnering more. Workforce development is a big deal right now. I tell you, a lot of us up here are fighting over the same people, trying to get them because we don't have enough workers in our community. We need folks to, maybe we can do things and be innovative, and maybe the public school district and the career academy and the Y can work together on a child development type of a program to get kids that can, be trained and learn those careers. And there's so much need for workforce in those different areas. But I see a lot of opportunity up here, and I think we're just such a community-minded group, and working together with United Way and all the different groups that are up here. I think there's a lot that we can do.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill actually touched on mine. What keeps me up at night is workforce. And that may sound hyper-local, but really it's not. Things that prevent us from having an adequate workforce is the drop-in daycare, so that people that are out there job seeking can come and do their interview or go through the CNA, 2-week class and get certified, and then come out and work in a job where basically you don't need any education, you don't even need a GED, you just need your CNA, and you can make $40,000 a year. So that's pretty good, but there's these barriers preventing them from getting there. Substance abuse is a huge barrier. There's people that can't pass a drug test that want to work in our industry, and they can't. Or they are working there and they get random drug tested, and then they can't work there anymore if they're found to have substance in their system. Another thing that affects our ability to continue to have a solid workforce is other things that are raised here, cultural differences. We have so many new Americans working with us, where English is a second language, and that just can create problems with people working together as teammates at Missouri Slope, or it can present issues for these people as caregivers with our residents, where residents have a tough time understanding their primary language, let alone understanding someone trying to communicate with them in their second language. So those are all things that related to labor that keep me up at night. And some of the things that we're doing at Missouri Slope is we launched a vision a few years back to become a care center of learning and innovation. And it means quite a few different things, but one of the important things that it means is trying to partner with schools and universities to bring students on our campuses in a very real way. Anything from middle school to high school classes, having classroom space on our campus that they can utilize and take what they learn in textbooks, that theory, and see it in real life and be able to communicate with us as directors and employees of Missouri Slope, ask questions, follow us, observe things that are happening. We feel like this would be a good hands-on experience for them to feel ready and hopefully build this desire of theirs to work in healthcare and hopefully long-term care and hopefully Missouri Slope. But even if we can get more people working in long-term care, we feel like that's going to be a win for what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
I'm going to kind of echo what I've heard. We've, at the Bank of North Dakota, we've held actually task force groups across the state over the last years. Issues, they're all the same. Workforce development's huge. Affordable housing. Issue with affordable housing is affordable. What's affordable? We struggled with this, at the bank trying to decide, okay, what's affordable? Affordable housing is different in every community. So that's one of the more difficult things. What is affordable here is different than, I grew up in Allendale, affordable is different there. And so when you talk about affordable housing, to me, it's a generic term. You have to really get down to the nuts and bolts and say, what's affordable? You have to identify by community from that standpoint. But it's a huge issue. The other one we hear is daycare, consistent across the entire state. Analysis we've done is the whole issue around daycare is part of it's the regulation around it, the cost, the number of staff you need per person, the cost of that staff. You throw on a building to house it and all those sorts of things, and it gets very difficult to make it from an economic standpoint. How do you generate enough revenue, or how do you keep it affordable and still be able to pay the staff you need to have in a building and all those sorts of things? It's a very difficult thing. We developed some things at the Bank of North Dakota, programs around some interest buy-down programs, working with various community partnerships. Hazen's got a great example of what they did out there in a private-public partnership, but really trying to look at daycare and looking at how do you, we have some interest buy-down programs that we've utilized and things like that. So again, we hear that a lot. The other thing around workforce development, I think Bismarck does a good job of this because of their career academy, but we're hearing more and more across the state. We have to start telling our youth that it's okay. Not everybody needs to get a 4-year degree. Not everybody needs to go there. That's important, but there are lots of very, very good paying jobs and technical skills, plumbers, electricians, all those sorts of things, where people can be very productive. They're needed all across. And so looking at some workforce development around all those issues and really changing our mindset. I think for a long time as a society, we've said you have to have a 4-year degree to be successful. I don't believe that's true anymore. I think there's lots of technical jobs available. Our state has gone from a state 10 to 15 years ago where we needed workers. That was the whole idea, was recruiting people to come because we wanted to create jobs. That's not our issue anymore. We got plenty of jobs. We need workforce development and ways to work through that. And then lastly, I would say is one of the things we're looking at doing is more certificate programs. The bank, the legislature did allow us, last year we were able to pass some legislation with their help that allowed us to start to provide financing through our student loans for certificate programs. We're working on one right now, but I think looking at additional certificate programs for those people that are in mid-careers and things like that can go out and look at programs where they can provide or get the skills necessary to maybe improve themselves.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you. I guess I can confirm all of the issues that people have spoken about previously, but thinking about a few other things that maybe have not been mentioned. We do not have access to a low barrier emergency shelter here in Bismarck. So if someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or happens to have a sex offender background, or also maybe have a pet with them, for example, and they have no place to stay, there's no place that they can really go at this point. Another thing that we're seeing is the aging population is increasing in our service area, and along with the aging population, we are seeing an increase in vulnerable adult cases and the severity of those that are aging with no family support and nobody to kind of rely on, where our public health nurses are kind of coming in and trying to be case managers for those people. So we're seeing that continue to grow.
Thank you. And welcome, if you'd identify yourself and the organization you're with, and a little bit about, well, you've kind of got the gist of what people are focusing on. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Dwight Barton. I'm the Executive Director at Burley County Housing. You've probably heard half the things that I'm probably going to talk about from Jenna and some of the other members. Anyway, just to touch briefly on what we do, we provide affordable housing for low and extremely low income families. And things that we're running into now is all of our dollars are federal, so we cannot house sex offenders, and we can't house certain felons, and basically all felons up to 3 years. So there's getting to be more and more of an issue for us as the ones that qualify income-wise for our programs are dealing with those types of things. They're in homeless situations. They have a lot of mental illness and addictions that you've already heard about. And those are the people that are qualifying for our programs right now. And so we've got a long ways to go. Our programs do not reach most of those people. We did put up a 40-bed basic care. I'm going in a different direction here. Homeless shelter that it provides supportive services, and we have partnered with agencies in town to provide those services. We are landlords, we are not social workers, and we prefer to keep it that way and continue to work with partnerships because we're not professionals in those areas. So hopefully we can continue to do that type of work. With these 40 units, we have 26 housed in about a 6-week period. And with those that have been housed, we've already seen success stories. We've got a few of them that are already have acquired jobs. They weren't able to get jobs before and hold a job because they didn't know where they were going to be sleeping the next night. So from that standpoint, it's been beneficial. And I will
thank you.
Let that go.
Tim, if I can just real quick, we've got about 20-25 minutes. We told everybody about 90.
Yes.
We're not kicking anybody out. You're certainly welcome to stay and continue this conversation, but for those of you that do have other things to get back to, just wanted to give you a good heads up on the clock.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, we will, by virtue of that, we will conclude at 1, right? And so again, that invitation to stay for conversation, recognizing though that many, maybe most of you need to bug out of here. If you need to leave before that, don't hesitate to go ahead and get up and go as you might need to. Last couple of things that I want to invite you to give some response to. One of them would be, if you can identify, and you know that you're sitting here, right, in conversation with the church community, so you can kind of put that hat on in terms of as you're thinking about it. If you can identify one or a couple of ways that you see that partnerships, either because you're already experiencing them or you could experience them, could most benefit your pursuit of serving the clientele, the people, the folks who you're serving. So you may already have an existing partnership and you say, boy, that works really, really well. We could use some more of that. Many of you may very well have other partnerships with churches. You may have some partnership experiences even with Good Shepherd. But if you put that hat on and say, boy, if we had an additional, right, few folks kind of infiltrate, come and serve, help, what would that look like? Where would you plug them in, right? And the other thing too is, as you're thinking about that, don't hesitate to think creatively too about to say, if Good Shepherd were to say, in this idea of partnership or service and some of something might happen here, right? We've got a great facility the way that we are. What might that be? Whether that's a formal partner thing, or I think, for instance, one of you spoke about, the value, right, that we know about, but the value of faith, of like Bible studies happening in church. Well, that helps to foster belonging and connection and relationships. That wouldn't be a partnership as such, but it would be something you might affirm. Hey, that's a value that helps mental health and well-being and community connectedness. So you can kind of think either way as you think about this matter of partnership. So we won't go down the road, but I'll let you, and it will, because we've got 20 minutes, so I'm going to invite you to be concise as you speak to that. And then I've got one last kind of burning question piece that I'll toss your way. So the matter of partnerships, potential partnerships, where does that seem to fit or work?
Well, thank you. And this is something that Good Shepherd is involved with. But Sean Oban mentioned that there are people in his school who really don't know how to parent. First, let me say the last time she spoke, I wanted to agree with Senator Oban that the microphone didn't be in the wrong direction. 4 years ago, at an interim Human Services Committee meeting, we heard from 3 principals. One was the principal of Dorothy Moses, Dr. Jason Hornbacher, who is now the superintendent of Bismarck Public Schools. Secondly, we heard from Russ Reel, the principal at Simley Middle School. And thirdly, we heard from the principal at Grafton High School. When Dr. Hornbacher passed out his testimony, I looked through it, and as I did, I assumed that because of the number of issues that he was about to speak about and the severity of those issues, that he was talking about the entire school district. But I found out he was only talking about Dorothy Moses Elementary School. And when the 3 of them were done, I said in the committee, I think that in addition to whatever we decide to do legislatively, we just need a statewide initiative that says, people matter. And the rest of the committee said, oh, that sounds wonderful, go for it. So a couple months later, and the church that I am a member of is Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church across the street from Walker Middle School. We have now in South Bismarck created that kind of an initiative, and we've now 3 times held Carnival Day in May, and Good Shepherd has participated in that. I appreciate that. Its purpose is to bring together resources from the community and set up in a kind of thing that would attract families. So we have the blow-up inflatables to attract people. But then we have different organizations, and some of them here have set up tables and provided information. And one of the frustrating things to me as a legislator is when people don't access services because they're not aware that they exist. So I think just those kinds of educational efforts are really, really important. Nice. Sometimes in the area of human services, I ask myself, when are we helping people and when are we enabling people? I think that's a pretty difficult distinction to make sometimes. But I think what Sean was saying about parents not knowing how to parent, anytime that we can help parents be parents, I think we're doing something right. And just one quick thing, separation of churches, in my mind, is an acknowledgement that each plays a primary role in society. So don't be afraid to step into faith-based partnerships.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll be real brief, but one area where I could see an organization like ours, we're trying to be very much a welcoming, connective healthy place, I'd love to get a Bible study from one of the churches or Good Shepherd, be able to start that at our location, which is a very neutral location, but be able to work on things like that. I think that's fantastic opportunities for the church community. A partnership that we did with Good Shepherd here a few years back with school-age childcare, when the need was very great, to give a sight to a few. But churches have invested in a fantastic asset that they have, and it can lend itself, and we're working with them through other churches right now too, where we provide after school or before school or after school grade school care. It helps to meet those needs with the assets that we have in the community.
Nice, thank you.
I'll go real quick.
Yep.
There is one gap, maybe in the summertime. There's a lot of kids that are aging out of, they're graduating 5th grade and going into 6th grade, and they don't have a summer camp to go to. Okay, so and it's expensive. I've had a lot of parents approach me about that. And so we're trying to always research and see what's open. The other thing I would say is each one of you has a skill or a talent or a desire. And if you feel you want to share that, we would love to hear about that and what that would look like. Because I think just getting connected, again, it's if you have a passion for it, it'll be more contagious than if you just sign up and sit in a chair.
Right, thank you. Real quickly, what's the, and it might be different districts, what's the percentage of low and free and reduced lunch families?
We're about 26% across the district, but
okay.
yeah, some districts or some schools within that are closer to 60.
Okay.
So we've got a few that are over 50%.
And are there programs where kids are sent home on Fridays with food kind of thing, and or are there programs to try to fill that gap in the summer?
Yeah, I think a few people alluded to that.
Yep, okay. Yep. Sorry, Kim.
Okay, just really quick, some ideas here. Transportation. We, as nonprofit agencies, have talked for years. Dan Zinhofsky always said, wouldn't it be great if we just had a van? Some retired person to drive a van around town. And honestly, I think about the homeless clients at our shelter. There's a soup cafe, which is wonderful, right? They're open 6 days a week. But our clients would have to walk in sometimes blizzard and sub-zero conditions to get there. So wouldn't it be great if there was transportation, talked with Carrie's kids, or transportation for Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, etc. That's one idea. Another idea is, wouldn't it be great if United Way or another funding partner could reserve a spot in your daycare? Assuming you have daycare here, right? I just saw the room as I passed by. But what if we reserved a spot or two for drop-in, and we could coordinate amongst the nonprofit agencies who uses it and when, and we would pay just like anyone else would pay. Another idea is we do meals Monday, Wednesday, Friday at our shelter. The main reason we do that is, well, first of all, so a lot of our working clients have a dinner. But more importantly than that, it's so the community can see the poor, can see the homeless, and see who they really are. And a lot of their misperceptions are changed. So getting involved and having an opportunity to develop relationships with people. We're embarking on not just building a new homeless shelter for Bismarck and Mandan, but a center for opportunity. And our vision is to bring services into one spot. That doesn't mean agencies move their offices and all of a sudden, operate solely out of our center. That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about someone who's living in poverty, having access to rental assistance, case management, a housing navigator, job services, mental health counseling, addiction counseling, domestic violence advocacy, etc. Right? Well, one thing we really need is quality and structured mentoring programs, so that people can walk alongside the poor and help to get them out of their situation. So there's plenty of opportunities aside from the Bible study that I mentioned earlier for your congregation to get involved in.
Nice, thank you.
I just wanted to add, in our work in public health, we are always looking to add a faith-based perspective to our planning and our assessment processes that we do in our community. And it can be difficult because there are so many to be able to reach out to Century Baptist Church, Trinity Lutheran, all these other different entities. Fargo-Moorhead does have a Churches United group, which has 66 different congregations that come together. It would be nice to be able to have that cohesive type of organization here where we can bring people in, and it encompasses all different aspects of that to be able to add value to some of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I think I've worked with a number of churches in Fargo-Moorhead area, and it's a very dynamic, important ingredient of what creates kind of that broader sense of community health and well-being, is that consortium.
Quick. So a lot of our clients don't like to go out in public because they are fearful for their safety. And so, kind of to reiterate what Carrie said, if you have a special talent or a skill that you want to share, it doesn't always have to be dollars or a massive commitment. We've had people come in and just teach a yoga class one night to the ladies, or Mary Kay representative comes in and does makeovers every once in a while. So just don't always think so big too. There's little things you can do that really like help people just feel better about themselves. And that's, I think, what we all want, is people to feel just as equal to someone who's working and has a house and a car and everything else, even if they're lacking those things. So.
Just to add to that, one of the things that we hear is this emergence of this, very specifically the matter of loneliness, and how that is talked about more and more and more. And one of the easiest ways to intersect that is this whole thing that we're all capable of doing, which is friendship, right? And that can happen in all these different ways. It's like you're saying, putting on makeup or playing a game of cards, or all these sorts of things that are not overly complicated and yet profoundly important, right? And we need to think in those terms of great real simplicity too. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Try to be succinct with this. The kind of idea that I work with, and is it is a religious setting, I'll throw this out for you, a rightly ordered life, and maybe you've heard of this concept before, but if you think about like a bullseye target, the center is your relationship with God, your spirituality in that sense, individual. Second would be on the outside, it's your spouse, and why we say spouse, you've heard the foundation of a family or what have you, a partner, looking out before you can serve your kids appropriately, your family, whether that's the sandwich generation up and above, your next to your close family members and friends, people that you intersect, and then the larger community, others that might be strangers. And I know that you're talking about how do you serve these people that are probably not your close, intimate friends at this point in time. But if you're not taking care of your own self, the foundation's going to be pretty weak. And I think that one thing educators and other service professionals up here can say is when you're pouring your cup and you have nothing left to pour, you don't serve people very well any longer. So I would encourage you, no matter what you do, to think about it from that perspective. I think that type of concept intersects with the idea of coaching versus case managing. What I mean by that is, whether you say Dave Ramsey's, financial perspective or other financial, people need coaching in how to manage their finances, for example. Or if it's the parenting example that Sean alluded to, people don't need to necessarily be the case manager, but maybe young single parents or single moms, for example, or single dads need that. We have mentor-mentees, a desire for that, whether it's school-based mental health issues, our EL populations, our adult learning center. We're always asking people think for money, but really I think what you're seeing up here is people want time and expertise. And that time and expertise doesn't have to be letters after your name that indicate that you have specific training, but rather the heart and the desire to serve, to pull up and walk alongside one another. So that's
nice, thank you. Kurt, we'll let you go in a second here. I just want to plant the seed. Will be our last few minutes. I'm going to invite you to, and if you still had something on the partnership thing, you can. I know you do, Kurt. But for you to think just a word on what do you feel particularly hopeful about, okay? In this broader scheme of your work and our work together, what are you particularly hopeful for? A word or phrase, just an image of that, and we'll end up closing with that. But,
Yeah, one of the things we'd be interested in, and it was actually brought up as a topic when I was preparing for this meeting, would be parent mentoring especially for some of our younger ladies that are in early recovery. So many of our people that we're working with, they do struggle with, just basic parenting skills and understanding. I gotta mention this, it hasn't been mentioned, and it goes all the way back to the needs kind of thing. North Dakota was actually a leader in the nation for the increase in suicides. And so suicide awareness and prevention is huge. It's just destroys families and people who are lost needlessly. The thing that I'm most hopeful for, Senator Dever talked about the legislature doing so much for behavioral health. In all the years that I've been doing the work that I've been doing, I've never seen the shift in our community, in our state, around the issues of substance abuse and mental health. And part of it is, even from the First Lady and her stance on reducing shame and stigma, understanding mental illness and substance abuse and removing the shame and stigma allows people to come out of the shadows. It allows people to seek the support that's so natural within the community. Otherwise, they hide and their families deteriorate from within. So not only has that shame and stigma been reduced, but now there's been funding behind that in the legislature, and so I'm just so hopeful. I've never seen the change that I've seen in the support for understanding that the people that I serve, the people that we all serve, are our friends and our neighbors and our relatives. They're not a throwaway population.
Right.
And it's just it's been incredibly hopeful.
They are we. Right. Good, thank you. So again, last word or two, if there's something that you feel particularly moved by, hopeful about. Yeah. Right.
Well, we do have a partnership here at Good Shepherd and a number of other churches, but I was just thinking, if I had access to 3,000-4,000 more people, one of the things I'd ask them to do for us is to like and share some of the things that are important to our organizations, whether it's us advertising for labor, or and through social media, like and share, or these van driver ideas, or whatever it might be, and just to try to explain to people that rather than liking and sharing, what people had for lunch or a negative political comment, if we just have more substance in those likes and shares and filling up people's news feeds with positive news and substantial news, I think that would go a long ways. It's just something small that each could do.
Yep, helping to change the temperament and that conversation that's going on and we need to be influencing. Yeah, good, thank you.
I'm going to make some comments and I've got to take off. I think what I'm hopeful of, first I want to thank the congregation for holding this panel. I think here's the big thing. Collaboration is what I like to see, and I think what I'm hopeful for is a state. From a larger picture, we see, for the first time, we're seeing a lot of maybe very, very large projects coming in. I'm maybe getting off topic, but I think the neat thing about the state is, and it goes down to the local level, is everybody knows everybody. It's pretty easy to get things done because everybody, their connections are made and it's easy to do. And I'm looking down this room, on this group up here, and I know a lot of these people, or know of the name and know that. That's huge. And the other thing I heard is that I know as entities, and I applaud the congregation for how do they become involved, what do they need to do, and everybody thinks it's new buildings or expanding and doing those sorts of things. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and the congregation shouldn't look at that, but utilizing and collaborating with each other and using our existing spaces and doing what we can do together, I think we can accomplish a whole lot more even before expanding or doing things like that. There's lots of different funding mechanisms. What I'm hearing is a lot of people, what agencies and a lot of people need are volunteers and time and mentors and those sorts of things. And those are not financial things, and maybe access to service. So again, I want to congratulate the congregation for thinking about this and holding this. I think it's great just getting everybody together, but there are a lot of things that can be done just by the conversations we're having. And thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Very good, thank you. Jason, we'll let you have the last word. Maybe if there's one last word you wanted to get in there, recognizing, right, it's not the end of our conversation, but it will be the end of it today. And I know Jason will extend this gratitude, but thank you so much. Your gifting and your service to the community at large and what it is you do, and your heart and your passion is tremendously important, as you know, and we're appreciative of that. We're super appreciative of you taking the time to come and share some of that with us here today. So, Jason.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for your time, your talent, and your expertise. I know many of you through my day job, and I heard some of the things I've heard before I was expecting these things, but it's great for people here, the team at Good Shepherd, for our congregation to hear these things firsthand. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us. This won't be the last time we talk. Once we gather all this data, we start to learn some things. You'll start to hear some recommendations coming forward from the project team. We would love that opportunity to share that with you and continue this conversation as we go forward. I don't have a pinpoint on that timeline, but obviously we know how to get in touch with you. So we'll find you when we have more information to share. So just on behalf of myself, the project team, the church council, all the staff that's here, Pastor Craig, Pastor Julie, Pastor Bob, we've got a whole bunch of other people here. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and talent, everything you're doing to help our community. Thank you.
Can I just close this in a word of prayer? Good and great God, we give thanks for this day. I give thanks for all these folks who have gathered, members of the church and our leadership, members of the community and their leadership. We ask you to continue to bless us and help us to see that we are all created in your image, and that together we walk as the human community, as brothers and sisters in that community that we call at Good Shepherd the body of Christ, but we know the diversity that that community faces. Help us to be one in that, in all that we say and all that we do, as we live out what it means to live in your image. In this season of Epiphany, may our lights shine and share your love with everyone that we meet. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, you got about 5 days before you have to get